What followed wasn't just one plant closing, it was a devastating chain reaction. The shockwave rippled outwards, triggering shift cuts, temporary layoffs, and supplier shutdowns from Detroit to Ontario. These weren't just abstract economic shifts, they were cancelled overtime shifts that paid for mortgages. As Wall Street analysts slashed forecasts, workers on the factory floor feared for their paychecks. The silence on the assembly line became deafening. The question on everyone's mind: how long can the line stay silent before the entire system snaps? Economists began to warn that up to 50,000 jobs were on the line. The policy was sold with a simple promise: revive American factories and bring jobs back. But in the hyper-connected reality of modern manufacturing, it acted less like a shield and more like a financial wrecking ball. In April 2025, the hammer fell. The White House hit all imported cars and, crucially, all automotive components with a sweeping 25% tariff. The move was abrupt, leaving an entire industry scrambling to adapt. Inside GM's headquarters, the finance team rang the alarm. The numbers were catastrophic. In an emergency call with shareholders, CEO Mary Barra delivered a grim forecast. $4 to $5 billion in annual earnings could simply vanish. This wasn't just about profit, it threatened to cripple the company's future by gutting funding for their next-generation Ultium battery platform, the key to competing in the global EV race. The administration offered a minor concession, a 3% tariff break for U.S. final assembly. But this fundamentally misunderstood the nature of the modern supply chain. With 40% of its parts imported, from Mexican wiring harnesses to Canadian transmissions, the break was a drop in the ocean. Suddenly, their most profitable vehicles, from the Silverado to the Escalade, got slammed by the new tax. This new tariff was layered on top of existing duties on steel and aluminum, creating a perfect storm. The math was brutal. Each new truck now carried an estimated $3,200 surcharge. The pain hit the smallest suppliers first. A steering knuckle that once cost $28 jumped to $36 overnight. Multiply that effect across the 30,000 components in a modern vehicle, and the scale of the crisis becomes clear. For a few months, GM tried to swallow the costs, but with profit margins evaporating, Wall Street's patience wore thin, demanding price hikes. The company was caught in a vice. And soon, those numbers hit the factory floors, not as data on a spreadsheet, but as production slowdowns and the first wave of layoff notices. The headlines about GM shutting down nationwide are misleading, but what did happen was just as devastating. April 11th, Detroit, Factory Zero paused, sending 200 workers home. Late April, Ontario, the Ingersoll Cami plant halted Bright Drop vans until October, 1,200 layoffs. Oshawa, Canada, the truck line scrapped its night shift, cutting 700 jobs. Suppliers like Adient closed 2 Tennessee plants, 400 union jobs gone. GM called this elastic idling, temporary pauses until parts flow resumes. But each idle week eroded margins and gutted local economies. Michigan diners lost nearly half their customers. Indiana shops warned of mass layoffs. By May, Wall Street slashed 18% off GM's outlook. For 2 years, General Motors was positioned to lead the EV revolution, staking its legacy on an all-electric future. But then, a perfect storm gathered, and 3 critical dominoes fell, threatening to derail the entire multi-billion-dollar enterprise. First, the crucial $7,500 federal EV tax credit was repealed. This subsidy was the financial bridge for many consumers. Without it, the price gap between electric and gas became a chasm. Next, Congress froze funding for national charging networks. This halted construction and amplified range anxiety, making EVs seem impractical for millions of potential buyers. Finally, new tariffs on essential battery minerals directly inflated the cost of GM's flagship Ultium cells, undermining the core promise of affordable electric vehicles. The fallout was immediate. Now, Factory Zero, once a symbol of ambition, is clogged with unsold Silverado EVs wrapped in plastic, a direct result of a market in retreat. GM data shows EV interest sliding from 14% to 7%. Even 0% financing can't offset soaring insurance and electricity bills, which are erasing the perceived savings for consumers. The financial pressure is immense. CFO Paul Jacobson admits GM must sell 100,000 Ultium trucks a year just to break even. But revised forecasts now cap sales at a devastating 65,000. Each unsold EV locks up $45,000 in capital, while its expensive battery degrades in the storage lot heat. Consumers are drifting back to gas-powered trucks, or sitting out entirely. This leaves an existential question. Was GM's EV dream simply oversold to an unready market? Or was it a viable future strangled by forces beyond its control? On Detroit shop floors, workers now clash over how tariffs hit real paychecks. UAW President Shawn Fain praises tariffs as finally putting American jobs first. But Canada's Unifor Union slams GM for trading Canadian livelihoods for US political points. Some workers who once backed tariffs now grumble, "Cut the damn tariffs." Mortgage bills don't care about politics. Elastic idling covers 75% of wages, but overtime is gone. Toolboxes stay packed by the door, reminders of Lordstown's 2019 collapse. Meanwhile, Trump shrugs. GM made their choices. No aid, just an ultimatum to adapt or sink. Divided unions weaken bargaining power, and GM takes advantage. GM isn't alone. The tremors from Detroit are being felt across the automotive world. The ripple is global, a complex web of interconnected fates unraveling in real time. In Windsor, Canada, the last minivan plant operated by Stellantis faces roller coaster schedules, leaving workers on edge. The instability has already forced 900 layoffs at feeder plants in the US, a stark cross-border consequence. It's the same story for heavy trucks. Volvo North America announced 1,000 temporary layoffs as the cost to build a single truck has ballooned to an astonishing $180,000. That price, driven by component shortages, is choking demand. Half a world away, GM Korea, a critical hub exporting 88% of its output to the US, now faces potential collapse. A looming 25% tariff isn't just a challenge, it's an extinction-level event for the facility. In response, competitors like Hyundai and Kia are scrambling to expand their manufacturing footprint in Alabama and Georgia. But factories aren't built overnight, and the new jobs they promise won't arrive until 2027. An eternity in this market. The very architecture of modern manufacturing is breaking down. Even simple supply chains falter. A Mexican piston, designed to cross the border 3 times for various treatments, now racks up crippling fees and delays with each transit. The smallest players are the most vulnerable. One Ontario supplier lost a staggering $1.2 million in a week over a simple customs error. For a small business, that's not a survivable loss. This isn't a temporary downturn. The auto world is entering a painful era of retrenchment, a strategic retreat where the focus shifts from growth to pure survival. Inside GM headquarters, planners are locked in a high-stakes war room, gaming out 3 possible futures. Best case, by late June, supply chains from Brazil and Mexico stabilize, allowing Silverado output to restart. EV production limps forward, but with razor-thin margins that leave no room for error. Middle case, new tariffs on Asian electronics send infotainment costs soaring. Plant utilization dips below profitable levels. Credit rating agencies take notice, and the threat of a downgrade looms. Worst case, China cuts rare earth exports. Ultium battery production collapses. US and Canadian plants go dark indefinitely. Debt piles up as morale evaporates. The outcome for GM and the industry now hinges on a delicate balancing act between 3 levers: policy, demand, and supply chain resilience. Tariffs were marketed as a shortcut to bring jobs home. Instead, they've left GM's lines silent, its workers idle, and billions in value evaporating. If demand recovers and policy shifts, the assembly lines could roar back. But if tariffs stay and credit tightens, this silence could last for years. So what do you think? Are these tariffs saving American jobs or strangling them? Will GM's EV plans survive? And what would you do if you were in the driver's seat? Drop your thoughts below. And if you want more deep dives into the crossroads of geopolitics, economics, and industry, make sure to subscribe to GeoScope. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay sharp.